I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon, and this is episode number 79. Today in the show, my co-host Dan and I are discussing the rut, but not like we usually do. Instead, today we're examining the dark side of the whitetail rut. All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Now today on the show, as I just mentioned, we're examining the dark side of the whitetail rut. And you know, so often we hear about the rut and just how magical it is, you know, how wonderful it is, how incredible it's going to be. But then when it actually arrives and our vacation begins and we hit the woods, somehow things most often don't turn out quite as terrific as we figured it was going to be. Stress, disappointment, missed opportunities, all these things are realities for a lot of us during the rut. And to ignore that aspect of this time of year, in my opinion, is a big mistake. But it's something that I don't think is talked about a lot in the hunting world. You know, all you ever hear about is how amazing the rut is, how great it's going to be. We don't really hear much about the challenges of the rut. So today, Dan and I are going to take a break from our rut vacations to talk to you about this very topic. And we've got a bunch of first-person examples of these very kinds of challenges, unfortunately, that have happened just over the past couple days. So we're going to share those. We're going to deconstruct, you know, what all these challenges might be and how we, and maybe you too, can overcome them. So, Dan, we've got a lot to catch up on. And I thought maybe, you know, we can just kind of go about this, talk about what's happened in the last week or so between the two of us. And I think throughout the course of those stories, we'll be able to touch on a lot of these overarching issues that I think apply to a lot of people. So what do you think? Does that sound like a good plan?
Sure. Let me just reopen this wound that I have on my heart.
Yeah, we're gonna pour some salt on it today too, man. It's man,
I'm crying on the inside.
I don't want to get to the big one yet. So let's save that a little bit.
All right.
Because that's, you know, that's the penultimate wound of all that I think we have to deal with here. But I don't know about you, and I don't. Maybe this isn't how it is for everyone at this time of year. But I'm hunting with a handful of other people in Iowa. Buddy and me that are from Michigan, and then a couple friends that live in Iowa, and we were all at a campground the other day at midday because I had to get down and move a stand, and we all had to kind of move stands and readjust our strategy. So my buddy was like, "Hey, I'm gonna make burgers. Just swing by the campground before you switch your stand." So I did that, and it was one of those hot days we've been having. And while we're there, we all kind of were talking, this is going wrong, and that's going wrong, and I'm complaining about this, and so-and-so's complaining about that, and so-and-so's over there with a huge frown on their face, and I'm just thinking, like, holy smokes. Like, this is the middle of the rut. Well, not the middle of it, but this is the beginning of the rut, and we're all sitting here, like, kind of miserable. Like, we're all stressing like crazy, and I'm like, we talk about this rut so much, like, it's going to be amazing, and then here we are, and we're all kind of killing ourselves. and not too happy at what's happening. And I don't know, do you get feeling like that? Like, I am just stressed to the max, to be honest with you. This last week, I've just been stressed. I sit in the tree stand, I'm stressed. I get back to the hotel room, I'm stressed. I'm talking to my buddies, I'm stressed. And it's kind of sad. And I'm hoping we can talk about that aspect a little bit. But do you ever feel like that with what's going on at this time of year?
I used to. This year and the last couple of years, I really haven't, because last year, obviously, I was filming for somebody. I gave up my rut vacation to film somebody else, so I wasn't feeling that kind of stress. This year, with 2 kids, a job, less hunting time, my focus mentally has been in the woods, but not 100%, just because I haven't had time. So you've been hunting way more than me, and I've been been trying to get into the timber as much as possible, and not to judge you on your age, but I used to be really like that when I was your age.
Gosh, I know, my grandpa.
I know.
What is this?
I know. I'm only what, like 8 years older than you.
Something like that. What are you?
7 or
8?
8?
54 now? Is that right?
50. Yeah. So I'm 23 years older than you, asshole. But I used to get all worked up and realize that, and over the years I just realized, man, you can't control any of this. You can only control just a very small portion of hunting. The rest of it's up to Mother Nature and chance. You can be and have the perfect wind, you can have the perfect stand location, and you can be miles away from, especially in the rut, from, let's say you have a trail camera picture of this buck and you're like, I'm going to move in on this perfect stand location, perfect wind. Oh man, the moon is perfect. The barometric pressure is perfect. And guess what? You can still fail.
Very true.
So for me, over the years, I've worried less about that kind of stuff and just accepted the fact that statistically you're leaning towards failure of your goal as opposed to being successful.
See, I think it's probably, maybe this is also like a personality thing too. Like, I understand that intellectually.
Yeah.
I can't accept it emotionally, I think.
Yeah.
I'm so driven and I'm so focused on a goal that even though I'll tell myself that exact thing, I can't help but become so invested in it emotionally, and just every little piece of my like heart and soul and brain and effort and body and everything I've got is so focused on trying to accomplish this one thing that it does become really more important than it is in my head. And I think a lot of people that are really serious about deer hunting, sometimes it's easy to get overworked up. And I realize that I can step back and look at this, and I can tell that in the long run this isn't so important that I need to be so worked up. Mm-hmm. But in the moment, it's sometimes hard to separate that.
Right.
And I know so many people, and perfect example is a bunch of guys I'm with right now that are all such serious deer hunters. And we've worked so hard to get to this point. We've planned our vacations and we've taken our vacation days and rescheduled our lives to make sure that this 7 days here is going to be when the dream for the year comes true. And then all of a sudden you get warm weather, or you miss some type of opportunity, or what you thought was going to be the case isn't the case anymore.
Yeah.
And holy smokes, the car crashes and boom, you got to figure out a new plan.
I think that in any situation, really, that energy that you're using to, I don't want to say complain, but be stressed about, could probably be used in a more positive light. And that's one thing that I found out over the years. Let's say, let's go into hunting pressure. If you have the same permission as other people, what are you going to do? You're going to whine about it, or are you going to look harder? You're going to find a new stand location. You're going to use their location to maybe flank the deer movement. All these other things that could cause stress. You might be able to take that and use that as an advantage towards you.
And I think what you're skipping to the ending of our podcast, Dan, because that really is, I think, the moral of the story of I think where we're trying to go today.
Yeah.
is that exactly, that there are going to be all these different challenges thrown away, and we can talk through some of the things that we've been dealing with. And the fact is, you're 100% right, is that stress, it's going to happen. It's not like you can't, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not going to get stressed for a moment, but the key is not to dwell on it, not to let it consume you, not to let it become all-encompassing, and instead to redirect it, just like you said. Yep. Redirect it and make a positive adjustment. And I think that so many different things that we'll probably talk about here, that is the solution. It's easier said than done in a lot of cases, but it's still, that's kind of the direction that I think we have to take with all these different things, because you're right, dwelling on any one of a million different things that could go wrong at this time of year, it's not going to accomplish anything.
Right.
So,
and I've learned some of this not through my own trial and error, but learning about the success that other bow hunters are having. And some of these guys are, they're very focused, they're very aggressive in their moves, but they're also in a way laid back. And they I don't know, they kind of go with the flow, as opposed to son of a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It does. No, it does. It does. So, I like what we're doing here. We've kind of set a foundation. We've kind of talked about maybe the overarching idea that I've been thinking about, maybe you've been thinking about, given some of the things that have happened. And I think, I'm hoping that we can really sell this point by the end, that, there's ways to become a little more laid back with this and try to enjoy it. So yeah, let's get into the details. How many times have you been out hunting so far? How many days have you hunted since we last talked?
Oh man, I haven't, other than this morning. This morning was my first weekday, other than Friday evenings. My first week, like I hunted this morning, and other than that, it's been, and I haven't even hunted a full Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday evening, Sunday night, Sunday morning type of scenario yet. I've had patchy hunting. So it's not like I've really had time to get in, pattern a deer, and get after them, so to speak. I'm in that process right now.
Okay. So then how about I'll start off with what I've been doing, because I've been out in the woods quite a bit since we last chatted. We talked last Tuesday, right? We talked to Matt, and on Wednesday night, I packed all my stuff up, and Thursday, I headed to Iowa. The original plan was that I was going to go to Ohio for a few days. Well, maybe I don't even remember what we talked about last time, but originally I was planning on leaving for Iowa Friday night and hunting that first week in Iowa, and then going to Ohio the second week. And then I saw that there was cold weather hitting in Ohio earlier, so then I was going to go to Ohio Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then go to Iowa for a week, and then come back to Ohio. And then I looked at the weather again, checking it like 17 times a day, and I started thinking, well, actually it looks like it's going to be really hot in Iowa for most of the week that I'm going to be there, so maybe I should leave early so I can catch a little bit of good weather in Iowa at the front end of my trip, so at least I have some good hunting before the hot weather hits. And then the second week, it looks like Ohio will be decent. So already you can see I'm overanalyzing and just trying to do everything I can to make sure I'm catching as much of the good stuff at every possible opportunity. So that's what I ended up doing. I left Thursday for Iowa, got in the stand. I went to Iowa, and first I got there at midday, hung a tree stand for the next morning, checked a trail camera, went over to another place where I could hunt in the evening, checked a camera there, and as usually happens with me this year, one of my cameras was defunct, so I didn't get any good pictures. So that's, great news to start. I'm hunting there, saw a bunch of does, and little bucks are coming out, and then, boom, four-wheeler comes driving by with another hunter. So, there's that. And I'm like, oh boy, this isn't ideal. And then the hunt continues, and I'm seeing a few more deer piling out, and then before dark, here comes the four-wheeler again, driving out before dark. This person does not seem to like to get in and out of their tree stands before or after dark, it seems, based on my experiences here so far. So that's the first night. And now I'm thinking, okay, last time I was out there, if you remember right, one of the nights I was there, a bunch of kids drove their four-wheelers all over the fields at last light, spooked all the deer. where one of my trail cameras was that I wanted to hang a tree stand. I got there, checked the camera, and an ATV trail had been cut through there, and a tree stand had been hung right in front of the trail cam. I had found 2 other tree stands when I was scouting. Now this hunt, Thursday night, a 4-wheeler drives by. I'm starting to get a little bit of concern about what the hunting pressure issue might be, but nothing too eventful that morning or that evening. The next morning, I go in to hunt the tree stand that I had hung, and at daylight, again, 4-wheelers driving all over the place.
Now, were these muzzleloader hunters?
No, there's no muzzleloader season going on right now, is there?
Okay, right. And I sorry, I got confused for a second.
Yeah,
because
no.
you had the same type of situation happen when you were muzzleloader hunting.
Well, I was bow hunting.
Oh, bow hunting, yeah, that's right.
But there was those muzzleloader hunters that showed up that weekend, 2 weekends ago. But this time, these guys are bow hunters. Different property even. This is the second Iowa property. The first one was where the muzzleloaders were, so I went to the other one to try to get away from that, and now that's where these bow hunters are. Gotcha. So then that morning, ATVs driving around all over the place. Didn't see much. I think I saw a 2-year-old 8-pointer and a couple does. When I head out from the morning, because I had to go hang a new stand, now I'm thinking, okay, man, there's hunters everywhere around here. And, we had talked beforehand about my plan going into this and how I had done a little bit of scouting this property, but I was really going to be trying to check out all these different pinch points and funnels, terrain funnels throughout this property that I've been studying on the maps. Well, now I've gotten, based on where I've been hearing the ATV drive all over the place, I know, okay, that whole bottom section that I thought I was going to be able to check out, sounds like there's hunters down there. This whole west side of the farm and all these different points I thought I was going to be on, there's a bunch of hunters over there. So now I'm like, whoa, where on this farm can I hunt that there's not other hunters? So I'm thinking about this as I walk back to my truck. And as I get back to my truck, there's another truck and a trailer. And I'm like, man, these guys are different hunters. So then I sit in my car and I'm checking trail camera pictures, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And those hunters come up and talk to them and find out, okay, they're hunting over on this side, and they say, oh, there's some other guys that hunt over on this side and that side. And so I'm sitting here after I talk to them, nice enough guys, and I have no issue with the fact other guys hunt. I mean, they have just as much permission as I do. It's just the reality of the situation is that now I have to try to adjust. Yeah. But I'll be honest with you, this was frustrating, especially coming from Michigan, where my hope coming to Iowa was that I'm going to be getting away from hunting pressure. I'm so used to hunting pressure all over here in Michigan, and now I was like, okay, Iowa, I'm going to have some unpressured deer. I can hunt, I can hunt this property. And I knew that other people had permission, but my hope was kind of that, based on some of the other people I know in Iowa, from what I've heard a lot, there's not as, there's just aren't as many bow hunters as there are in Michigan. So I assumed that this property, maybe I'd have another guy and then some shotgun hunters or something, but I could deal with that. But now it was like changing my entire plans. So what I ended up doing is kind of looking at my map again and just thinking through, okay, pinpointing all the different places where I've seen tree stands or where I've heard hunters go or I've seen hunters go, and I just started like crossing out places on my map. And okay, this pinch point gone, this pinch point gone, this bedding area gone, this route here gone. And what I ended up being left with was one corner of the farm, one little like 40-acre section where, based on my assumptions and what I'd seen and everything, I thought maybe that area wasn't getting hit. It was like hard to get to. It was the farthest away from most of the other access points. It just kind of seemed like out of the way, and it didn't look as good at first glance, I think, as compared to some of these other spots. So my idea was, okay, I'm going to pull a stand, and at midday I'm going to sneak over there, hang a stand kind of on the edge, and just observe this little corner and hopefully figure out if there's anything over here, because to this point, every time I hunted, I'd seen a couple does, a couple little bucks, but not a whole lot going on, just a lot of hunters.
Yeah.
So that gets me to, this was Friday evening, and what I ended up walking into and what I ended up discovering was, exactly what we talked about a minute ago, which is, I was frustrated. I was getting kind of disappointed with the situation. I was, it was only day 2. It was only my 4th hunt. My 6th hunt if you include the weekend before. But, to your point, it's a matter of not getting down about it, but instead like adjust. Think about what's happening here. Where are the other people? How can I take advantage of that? Because I started thinking, okay, if there's all these hunters over in these different places, it's a good chance that it's going to push some of the action to wherever there's not a bunch of guys coming in and out all the time. And so there was this corner. I went over this corner, hung a stand, got in there, and I walked into a Drury Outdoors DVD. Like, literally, Dan, this was a night like unlike any other I've experienced as a deer hunter.
Okay.
It was the coolest thing. Frustrating in the end a little bit, but so cool too. That like I went from having like my Iowa trip that like this is not what I hoped for. Like this is the exact opposite of what I'd hoped and dreamed about when I came to my Iowa vacation. And then 48 hours later, all of a sudden I'm like, this is what you dream of. And it was a perfect example of not giving up, not getting disappointed or frustrated and throwing in the towel already. Instead, just keep adjusting, keep working through it, keep pushing through it, because I saw more shooters in one sit than I've ever seen in my entire life. I saw, I hung on this stand, and basically what this little place is there's a big ridge, a big timbered ridge with a kind of creek that runs all around it, kind of making it look like if you put your thumb up, like hold your fist, make a fist, and then pop your thumb up, point up, you're giving someone the thumbs up, and then draw a big river, kind of a small creek, I guess it's more like a big creek, around that thumb up. And then that's your big timbered ridge.
It's like a peninsula.
Exactly. Essentially becomes a peninsula, but it's a big timbered ridge. And at the very bottom where your thumb meets with the rest of your fist, there's this cornfield, this little part of a cornfield, and then a timbered ridge that extends out to the right side, as if you were to draw like a backward C from the bottom of your thumb out and around your fist. And so I sat on this little timbered ridge along the edge of the cornfield at the bottom of this big peninsula. And what ends up happening is that these deer were just piling off this ridge, dropping into this cornfield. And because there was this other ridge that I was sitting on that drops behind me, it's very steep. It is cliffs. It's essentially cliffs behind me. The deer can't go down that way. So any deer that want to come off this peninsula to all these different crop fields that are out in front of me and beyond, they have to drop down right in front of me, essentially. And they ended up doing that. So first it was 4 does, and then there was 8 does, and then it was 8 does and a little buck, and there was 9 does and a big buck. And they just kept coming and coming and coming. And I ended up seeing probably 40 plus deer, maybe more.
Wow.
Probably 12 or 13 of those were bucks. And I saw a ginormous 8-pointer with split brows on both sides that I had gotten on camera that first day at one of my other tree stands. I saw him a long distance off over on the neighbors, walking the edge of this little corn plot. I then saw a big 10-pointer, I guess maybe in the 150s with a split G2. I saw another big mainframe anteater, maybe like 135 to 140. And then after shooting light had passed, another one came out that was, I don't know, somewhere in that 140-ish range, I think. It was just so dark, I could just kind of see a big frame with my binoculars off in the distance. But all these deer came out, and one of them, that Big 10, ended up coming by so close, but it was kind of like that situation 2 weeks ago where it was just a little bit too late and I couldn't get a shot. But it was like one of those situations where it was like, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and then that feeling where it's just like you're looking at your phone and you're looking at the pins and you look at your phone and you're like, oh, it's not going to happen. Yeah. And you're just kind of praying, like, hurry up, get here. And it doesn't happen. Right. But it was a crazy night. But again, the whole time I was sitting there, I kept worrying that these guys were going to come driving up. I kept waiting the whole week since I've been there. Like, whenever I hear an ATV fire up or I hear a loud noise, I'm just like, oh no, here they come. Yeah. Luckily that night didn't happen. So that was Friday night. Did you go hunting Friday night?
This Friday night, yes, I did. I went hunting Friday night.
So tell us about that.
Friday night. So, okay. First off, I have to set the stage, right? My buddy moves into a new house, and he moves into a new house that's 100% timbered, or like it's in timber, 15 acres of timber. Okay. He set out a trail camera the very first day he moved in, and then he waited 1 week because he travels all week long, and then he's basically home Thursday night through Sunday morning, and then he has to leave again Sunday night for his job. So he sends it. He checks his trail camera, and he's not a hunter. So I talked him into getting a trail camera. Nice. And he sent me a text. He's like, best period, card pull period ever, period. And I'm like, okay. Now, his idea of a big deer and my idea of a big deer are two different things. But when he sends me the pictures of these two bucks that are frequently, like, they're on his property, my jaw dropped. And
Was that
you've
good,
seen,
huh?
yeah, you've seen the pictures.
Well, I've seen the one. I've seen the one buck. I haven't seen the
Yeah.
other buck.
The other one is a gigantic bodied 8-pointer with split brows.
Ugh.
I mean, he's just heavy mass. I mean, he wouldn't score but 140-ish, maybe a little higher, but he's got two little splits off of the top of his brows, but his body is just, I don't know. You look at that and you go mature buck. No matter what, it's just huge on the front end. He looks like a bodybuilder.
That's awesome.
or a strong man, So long story short, all right, I'm like, okay, these deer in this area, these bucks, and for the last however many days we've had south winds. So Friday night, I'm like, here's what I need to do. His property, the high part is a road, and it drops all the way down to a creek below. And between the road and the creek is some of, if I was God and I was and God was this awesome deer hunter, and God said, I'm going to create the best hunting property there is as far as terrain is concerned, he would copy this terrain as far as bedding area is concerned. The entire 15 acres is the thickest, some of the most perfect bedding area I've ever hunted in my life. So I have now fallen into an awesome property, basically luck. So I follow the main trail in where he says he's seen these, where he has his trail camera and where they're coming from. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bump just a little bit past it, drop down this creek, set up, and cut a couple shooting lanes and just basically observe right off the bat. Friday night I get in there, and I set up. Nothing too exciting. I saw a couple does walk by, but the wind was off the south, but it was blowing northeast because of the lay of the land. It's swirling. So I'm just like, oh my God, those does busted me, and they started snorting. And then they left, and I saw that big 8-pointer come out of the bottom creek and into the field to the north of me. He was a long ways away and right at last light. And he was chasing two does, and then they basically went on to the next property where there's some standing corn. And then right at last light, I'm not 100% sure if it was the big buck or not, but I thought I saw him. Okay. Now.
Hey, time out.
Yeah.
You haven't told us about this other big buck yet. So we talked about the big 8-pointer, but what was the other big one?
All right. So coming soon. I'm talking about it right now.
Okay.
All right. So next morning I go back out, and it's raining. I pulled the Mark Kenyon. I hunt in the rain. I'm a man.
Attaboy.
So I put on my the same rain jacket I used to go out west.
Gosh,
and you know how good
don't you learn? Let's note this is not a rain jacket any of us recommend, right?
Basically, it's a garbage bag.
It's literally no. Did you literally wear the garbage bag underneath it like you did in Idaho?
No, I did. But
I need to post that picture online, by the way.
But anyway, same story. South wind, and the wind was blowing back up into the bedding area. I'm like, Jesus, man, what's going on?
What is with this south wind? This is not what I was planning on.
But it's awesome for this property, man. I'm telling you.
Nice.
So I tear down, right? I come back. Okay, so I can't hunt Saturday. I tear down and I move it in the rain to it, basically right up against his trail camera, right in this little opening where the previous owners had a garden. Okay. And I can see the house. I can see the neighbor's house. I can see the road. And I'm just like, okay, maybe I overthought it. Maybe I jumped in too far. And so I had my stand set up for Sunday morning. Sunday morning comes, and instantly there's deer working through the area. All right. I'm not only seeing them to the south, they are coming right by his house, and they're coming right in between his house and the neighbor's house, which there's a draw that separates them. All right. Now I'm sitting here going, are you kidding me? You know, like these pictures and these deer are literally 50 to 100 yards. They're walking 50 to 100 yards from this house. So these deer have never been hunted before, or well, they could have been, but not on these two properties.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm sitting in my stand. I'm watching these does work through. I had a doe lick my bottom stick.
I love that.
Yeah. So I was in the right spot. None of them spooked, and sitting about 8:30 south wind, and it's blowing off into the creek and to the south, to the north of me. So this buck has crossed through my wind. It comes in through the thickest, nastiest stuff, and he borders this little open area. I'm on the southeast side of this little garden area, and I was hunting a trail that came out of the bottom, kind of up towards the house where the trail camera was setting, and where the trail camera had showed all the movement. Well, he stayed further south this time. I look at him, and you look at him and you don't even need to put your binoculars up. You just go, shooter,
So for you, what was it, 240 inches?
No, he's probably low 170s. I'd have to say low 170s, high 160s conservatively. And he's not very wide, but he's an 11 pointer. So he's a mainframe 6x5. And so he walks down, he's walking parallel to the creek. And then he drops down in this into the very bottom of the draw that runs up in between the two houses. He goes to the neighbor's backyard and walks the tree line up in between the two houses where these does went, and he starts pushing does. I call my buddy Sunday morning from the stand as this booner is in between his house, and I go, look out your window. And he looks out the window and he sees him. He's like,
for real?
This is for real.
That is incredible.
Yeah. I said, look out your window. He's like, are you kidding me? And I said, dude, go walk on your deck and see what happens. So he walks on his deck, and the deer don't even move. Okay. The buck starts grunting, looks up at him and starts grunting and chasing these does.
You got a heck of a spot there, man.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So this is, it's one of those things where they're comfortable with some type of human interaction, right? At least up at the houses. So long story short, he starts pushing some of these does and get split up. In the meantime, another smaller 8-pointer comes in and starts, messing with the doe that he's trying to break off from this doe group. And all the does, the second that the little buck got into the picture, the bigger boy, he looked at him and started taking some steps towards the smaller buck. Well, in that period of time, the doe that was broken off joined back up with the 3 other does and started heading south or to the north, closer to my position, right? So there's a gardening shed where they kept all their tools and stuff. These deer walked right behind there. All right. So this is where the black part of the rut, or the depressing part of the rut, comes into play. And I don't know how to really describe it, so I will do the best thing I know how. The sun's up, it's bright, and it's shining on a wall of trees, right? So the front part of this area is all covered in sun. The back part of it is all shade and shadow. So for the human eye, it's kind of like you're looking at headlights and trying to find out what the color of the car is. It's almost impossible. So these does work by the area, and I ranged the tree that they walked by. All right. I ranged it at 30 yards. The other buck, he comes right down the smaller buck comes first. and he walks probably, my estimate was 10 yards further past this tree. So, and I had a very small window. I'd say a 5-foot window on a moving target. All right. So I ranged the gap, and it said 50 some yards. So there was nothing in between that tree except the other side of the ridge. All right. So I had to guess, basically. So I guessed 40 yards. I thought that this buck was 10 yards past this tree that I ranged. All right. So he got in there. I did a little bap. He didn't stop. And I kind of followed him, and I pulled the trigger. And I shot over his back. I was perfect left to right. So I get, long story short, I got out of the tree. I walked over to where I missed him, and he was way closer to the tree than I had estimated. So he was more at about 32 to 35 yards as opposed to 30 or 40 yards that I guessed. So I put a 40-yard pin right on, like, it. I split him 50-50, right down the center, probably 6 inches behind the shoulder. So if he was probably 10 inches straight down, I would have hit lung and liver. But along with his little dip that the deer do, and my high estimated distance, I shot right over his back. I cried.
Yeah. I was just curious. That's what I was going to ask. How many tears? How?
I just, I'll be honest with you. I just sat there and I went, man, emotionally, I kind of reflected back on all of the other disappointments that I've had over top of throughout my entire hunting season, like my career, shipwreck, shot him, didn't kill him. I missed probably a booner in 2005 or 6. I've been busted several times by world-class deer. I've called that deer I probably shouldn't have called to, and then never seen again. And all these mistakes kept flowing back in my head, and I was just feeling down about it.
It's easy to do. I know that feeling very well.
So I got a buddy who I consider a big buck killer, right? And I called him up, or I texted him, and I was like, dude, missed a booner today. And he's like, what'd you do wrong? I was like, I misjudged distance. And I, he gave me some advice or whatever. And then I texted him back about 4 hours later, and I said, any advice? And he came back with an awesome response. And he said to me that success doesn't make a good bow hunter. Failure makes a good bow hunter. And how you work off what you do because of those failures to make yourself better, that's what makes you a good bow hunter. And I thought I had some bad luck, as far as missing deer. I mean, he sends me back some examples about every time that, he's like, I hit a deer in the shoulder. Now I shoot every deer 6 inches behind the shoulder. I've missed straight down shots, like a deer at 5 yards. I practice at 5 yards. I've, all these things that he now have made him a big buck killer. And it's all these other encounters that has made him how he hunts today and has made him successful. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I look at myself in the mirror and I go, you know what? Over the years, I have tried my best to be in the right spot at the right time. So I can actually take away a successful part of this and say, you know what? I'm getting better at locating, patterning, and getting my stand in the right spot based off historical data and, what other big bucks have done in the past. Now, I know that comes natural to me now. So now the only thing I have left to do is put the period at the end of the sentence, so to speak.
Yeah. Man, that's I like the advice your friend gave you.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
And it's, man, I can very, very, very much relate to you and in that situation. And as you know, I missed that buck earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And man, those moments afterwards, I had the exact same feeling or exact same type of situation, I think, as you mentioned, that you just sat there and it's just like a deep breath out. And it's just like, how does this happen? You know, all these different things that have gone wrong before you think about, and to all the work you put into it and all the time you spend on it, and then to have the opportunity and then it just slips just out of grasp. You know, I mean,
Yep.
That's kind of, in the moment, it can be crushing. And I think, you know, a lot of people, I mean, so many people just the last week, you know, I felt down on myself for that type of thing before. And I think, to your point, you know, hearing from someone, you know, it's not just you.
Yeah.
It's not something you need to be embarrassed about. It's not something you need to feel, you know, like you're a horrible person about or that you're a horrible hunter, because it is something that happens, and it happens to so many people. And all you can do is exactly what you're doing and exactly what your buddy told you, which is learn from it, become a better hunter because of it, and get back out there.
Get back in the stand. That's the most important thing. Go shoot your bow a couple times, get back in the stand. That's your therapy right there. And I'll be honest with you, I feel so confident right now that about this buck that I am canceling. Like I'm on him because I saw him again this morning. All right. And he was heading away. He was heading away from my position through that guy's backyard again. And,
so when are you going to set up in the shed?
Dude, we thought about it. I thought about
awesome.
it. But where he's been frequenting is the backside of the shed. There's no door there. So
get a little saw to a little opening.
Right. But it's one of those things where I feel so confident now that, and with my shot, and I know what I need to do. I got my stand. I moved my stand. I'm in an awesome spot, and where I feel is like one of the greatest pinch points I've ever seen. And it's just a matter of tweaking it, see where he comes tomorrow morning. And if he doesn't come tomorrow morning in that same spot, I'm going to have a stand there. I'm not going to have my stand there. I'm going to move it 5 yards, 10 yards. If I have to move my tree stand 1 yard to the next tree to put myself into a better situation, or tear down, set up, tear down, set up, tear down. I don't care how many times. If you want that, you have to go get it. You have to be willing to put in that extra work. It's, we say this too much. By now, the people who listen to this podcast, the hardcore guys who are following us every week, they know what needs to be done. And it's one of those things where you get these emails. I get these emails. Hey guys, you talked me into doing this. You talked me into doing this. Here's how I was successful. Man, we get so many of those.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. And we have to follow we have to follow that too.
Yeah, you and me need to have one of these podcasts where, hey, we did what we talk about and it worked. It hasn't happened too much for us lately this year. I guess just once.
Right.
But no, I think you're spot on. I love, it's the same thing I've tried to tell myself, although sometimes it kind of like, you can look at it two ways, where you mentioned the fact that you worked so hard to put yourself in a position to be in the right place at the right time. And in this case, you did that, right? You were in the right place, you were in the right time, and just missed the period at the end of the sentence. You can look at that in two ways. You could look at it as, I did everything right, and then it just slipped out of my fingers. I'm such a screw up. Or you can look at it as, I did everything right except for the little piece at the end, and say, hey, you're close, you're doing the right things, you're getting there, it'll happen next time. And I really like that outlook. I like the glass half full, take the positives away, identify what happened wrong, and fix it, but be positive about it. I think that it's hard to do, in a lot of cases, but it's so important to make the effort to do so.
Let me put it to you this way. If you want to be a predator and you want to go in and kill big deer, or any animal for that matter, or even kind of like a way of life, do you think a lion or a mountain lion or a bobcat feels sorry for itself if the rabbit outruns it? No. It goes and finds another rabbit. Or, you know what I mean? Nature does not feel sorry for itself. You know what I mean? It has a focus. You are either on the top of the food chain or you are on the bottom of the food chain. So that's how you have to act, in my opinion.
Yeah, right on. It's the truth. So you saw him again this morning.
I saw him again this morning. I have my stand hung for tomorrow morning. And all I have to do now is show up. And I have all day tomorrow I can hunt, and Thursday morning I can hunt. We got south winds, which is perfect for this property. And I don't know how good the tomorrow evening is going to be. And then I leave for a wedding. Insert gun into mouth.
Yeah.
But it's my brother, and I'd do anything for him. So if that means missing the best possible days of the rut, I guess I'm going to have to do it.
It's kind of brutal, too, because, that time frame is when this great cold front hits. We've had this horrible weather in Iowa the past couple days, and the next day or two, it's in, at least by me in Iowa, it's 72, 73 degrees. Awful for this time of year. And then Friday, the floor drops down to the low 50s. The morning's going to be in the 30s. And it's like that for the rest of the weekend. And I'm going to be hunting, and you're going to be giving toasts at a wedding.
Right. And by the way, it's going to be one of the best speeches any best man has ever given to.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's going to be. I can't give it away because my brother actually might listen to this.
Would he really?
Yeah. Yep. He listens to my stuff and
nice.
My stuff. So anyway, but let me tell you what I've kind of found out.
Tell me, what have you found out?
I've seen 1, 2, 3 shooters this year. Okay.
Total?
Total.
Whole year.
The whole year.
Okay.
Right. 3 years. 3 shooters. Maybe 4. 3. Anyway. So because of my family and because of this wedding and because of how busy I am with life, I have been out of the woods more. All right. Because of that, I have put less pressure on my hunting properties. So in some kind of freakish way, it might be fate or karma or yin and yang or whatever you want to look at, telling me staying out of the timber during the early season might be beneficial for you.
Definitely.
So I love to hunt, but I'll tell you right now, I'm getting firsthand. I'm seeing firsthand how first in sets are the best.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the truth. And I think it's something we pounded home on a lot of episodes, the importance of staying out until the perfect time to strike, and then you go in there and make it happen.
Right.
And I think you've been forced out by outside situations to make you do that in some ways, but it's cool to see it hopefully pan out for you now. I have a prediction.
Okay, what's that?
I believe that by next Wednesday, so a week from tomorrow,
okay,
you will have killed that buck or another very impressive deer. Between now and the next 7 days, I do believe that you are going to kill a giant.
All right. That's, it's all about vibes, it's all about putting out good vibes and accepting good vibes. And if you put good vibes into the universe, good vibes will come back to you. That's that's hippie talk for those who don't know, but we have gone on a huge rant, by the way.
Yeah, that's what we do.
That's what we do.
What we do. I want to say one more thing about the hippie stuff.
Okay, hippie stuff.
Before you redirect us back on task.
Okay.
But you've taken some lumps lately, man.
Yeah.
You have chased a giant for years, almost got him, and then have a neighbor famously get him.
Yep.
You've had a couple really, really close calls with some great deer, and it just didn't quite happen for you. Now you've had this miss. You took an entire season almost of your rut last year and gave it to your buddy, let him hunt your property, filmed your buddy. I mean, really, you've taken some lumps. You've done some things for other people, and I really do believe deep down that it's coming around for you, man, and you are going to have it happen.
Right.
And I'm pumped for you. I'm excited for you. I have confidence in you. I know that you know what you're doing, and I know you're going to make it happen.
It's kind of cool that you said that, because I was thinking about that the other day. And not to be cocky or saying what if or anything like that, but I'm literally yards or inches in some instances from having a wall full of giant freaking animals. And it's like something didn't go my way or or it was like the teeter-totter tipped in the other direction, if that makes sense. So, that guy, and I'm going to use a wrestling metaphor here for you.
Oh, here we go.
There's a guy named Cale Sanderson, okay?
Iowa State.
Iowa State, yep. And he went undefeated.
Are you impressed by that, by the way?
I'm very impressed by that.
Thank you.
He went undefeated throughout his entire collegiate career. All right. Now, there's another wrestler, and I'm sorry, but I forgot his name, but he finished second place in the national championship 4 years in a row. Not behind Cale Sanderson. This is a different year set, and he got beat by different champions, but he finished second every year. And he had like maybe a total of 5 losses throughout his entire collegiate career, which is very impressive, and finished second every year from freshman to senior. So it's one of those things where he's still a good wrestler, but nobody talks about that guy.
Right. So you're feeling like the guy that that you don't even remember his name.
And I don't care.
But
to be honest with you, I just love that Facebook can keep you in check, and we're going to talk about Facebook envy here real quick. But Facebook can keep you in check too. I had a story, or I post online, hey, I missed a booner this morning, and the guy came on, and he said something along the lines of, hey, at least you saw a booner. I live in Michigan and haven't even seen a deer over 130. Yeah. So
in his life, maybe.
In his life. No, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Or a guy in Pennsylvania, he's like, oh, congratulations, you get to hunt Sunday. I don't see big deer, and I can't hunt Sundays.
Yeah.
So, that kind of puts you back in check, and you're like, you know what? My situation's pretty good.
Yeah. Very true.
All right, I'm going to go kick my dog in the face.
Was wondering. And with that, Dan is away from the computer. Now he's about to kill it.
All right, sorry about that.
So is the dog alive still?
Maybe a broken pelvis.
Disclaimer, no animals were hurt in the recording of this podcast.
If I hurt that dog is the biggest a-hole I've ever met. It's a diva. She's a diva. But if I hurt that dog, my wife would divorce me and maybe even kill me.
Oh gosh, I just loved that moment right there. That was pretty special.
Are you gonna run with it?
Oh, we're keeping it. We're keeping it.
Oh boy, you might have to bleep some stuff out.
Yeah, we might edit a little. So,
all right. Facebook envy.
Facebook envy. Oh man. So this is something that I think impacts a lot of people. At least based on, talking to my friends, and even, I think it's natural, human nature. When you're struggling, we're out there in the tree and things aren't going your way and you're bored and you're looking at Facebook and you see that everybody else, at least it looks like it, everyone else is having great success, it can be a little bit tough. Have you ever succumbed to Facebook envy in any little bit, Dan?
I think we talked about this.
Did we?
I don't know if it was last year or the year before, on an earlier podcast for sure. And I used to be like, man, God, I want to do that. I want to kill a big buck. And obviously what we realize is your circumstance is different than their circumstance, and some of the, and I hate to say it, and I don't want to, and I truly believe that it is an influencer, but who are you looking at? Do you know their situation? They probably, some of these guys are, you may see some success stories. Hey, I shot this on public land. Awesome. 200 inches. Boom. This guy went in deep. He did everything right. Or this guy sat on a field edge and he got lucky, or this guy hunts on a managed property that, the outfitter set his stand. You don't know, very rarely it's just an image, it's more than likely it's just an image. And I used to succumb to that. Now I just don't have time. I don't have time to get jealous of other people.
Yeah, it's man, it's one of those things that if you let it get to you, it can get to you. And so the key is, I think to your point, you don't know the circumstances, and it's not helpful at all to obsess over how other people are doing, to look at it. And I think it's because it's just thrown in front of us all the time when you see all these things showing up on Facebook. And then, the way the Facebook algorithm works is that when someone likes and engages with a post a lot, it gets shown a lot more. So like, you might have like 500 friends on Facebook or whatever, 5,000 friends on Facebook, and only 15 of them out of 5,000, maybe let's say they're all hunters, only maybe 15 out of 5,000 maybe actually killed something in the last week. But because they're getting a bunch of likes on it, all of them are going to show for you all of a sudden. So all of a sudden we're getting all these people that we never see, but boom, all these bucks, and it seems like it's going everywhere and it's not going for you. And it can be, if you let it, it could be disheartening. And I've definitely at times been like, man, I don't want to look at Facebook anymore because everyone else is killing them. But that's not really what's true. There's way more people that are going through the same thing you are, and like you said, you can't let it get to you. You don't. It doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't do anything. It's no good. Say congrats. Be happy for other people. Focus on your own thing.
Right. That's fact.
But again, a lot of the stuff, it's all easier said than done, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about, the stress, envy, disappointment, it's human nature. It's ingrained in what humans are built to do. We're going to feel these things sometimes, and it's just what I think all of these different challenges come down to, whether it's dealing with hunting pressure or missing a giant buck, or seeing everybody else supposedly having success and you're not, or dealing with crappy weather during your only 7 days of vacation, whatever it is. I think the only solution to all these things is just mental toughness, mental strength, just being able to, sure, you're going to have this initial emotional reaction maybe, but then it's like, how do you deal with it? How do you move on? How do you get to the next place? How do you adjust? Because dwelling on this emotion or dwelling on this initial reaction, it doesn't get you where you want to go. So it's just being tough enough in the head, strong enough to move forward, to do something about it. And I think another thing that I just mentioned there that I think we should talk about when it comes to the dark side of the rut is the weather. And there's a lot of people right now that are kind of upset probably because of the weather they got stuck with for their rut vacation. I got a buddy who his job does not allow him to take off very much time at all because he runs a medical practice that he has people scheduled all the time, and he can't just take off. If he takes off, the business doesn't run. Right. So he has 5 days he gets to take off during the rut that he has to set months ahead of time, and he gets that time off, and he's a huge hunter, and he loves hunting, and he dreams of it the entire year, and he gets his 5 days of vacation off, and this is it. And he gets stuck with 4.5 days of 75-degree weather when he spent $650 on Iowa tag or whatever it is and bought a hotel room and took off all his time and drove here. And this is the cards that are dealt to you. And I think there's a lot of guys out there right now feeling that way. And there's a lot of people probably feeling down about it.
Right. Well,
and the thing is, what are you going to do with it?
Exactly. Guess what? It's the rut. Deer are going to be moving, get in closer to the bedding areas.
Yeah. Get closer to bedding areas. Get close to water. Right. Is a big one. These 75-degree days, they're not going to be moving as much as they typically would be maybe on a 40-degree day during the rut, but they're going to be more apt to want to get a little drink of water. And focus on, even more so, really be focused on that early and late. Here's a perfect example. A couple of my friends I'm hunting with in Iowa right now, stressing about the warm weather, but they still went out this morning. Mm-hmm. And my friend Kendall arrowed the best buck she's killed, I think maybe ever, or at least in a number of years, on today, 75-degree day. But she got out there early in the morning, got it done. They were still cruising, they were still working, and she got a great buck on a day that on paper looks like not a good day to be hunting. Right. But she stuck it out. She went out there and she killed a great deer. You got to be out there in the woods at this time of year.
Yep. November 4th, 75-degree day, strong, really windy, strong south winds. Hopped into an area that I thought, wasn't near as good. I wanted to stay away from the places that I thought I would. Saw one of the biggest bucks I've ever seen from the stand on that day and came within 10 yards of throwing an arrow at him. So anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Exactly.
Yep. And then he was shot on the other people's farm.
Yeah.
That happens. Is what it is.
Yeah. So I didn't finish telling you about the rest of my couple days of hunting since that. Okay. So I'll follow that up with a couple more things here, because I think it will maybe cap us off here nicely. I had that Friday night hunt. I had to deal with, all right, that Friday night hunt was a great hunt. Saw all those big deer, got excited. But when I tried to get out the back door that night, I tried to sneak down this timbered ridge to get out of there without spooking deer.
Yep.
I ended up kind of getting lost in a tangled pile of like 50 acres of briars and down trees, and about broke my ankle and literally got covered from head to toe in briars and stickers. Like, it was a disaster, everything. So the next morning was pouring rain, so I decided I was going to take a little bit of time off, try to get all, I had to wash and dry all my stuff to try to get those briars off because it was so bad. But I went back out there the next night, and here's where I in hindsight, I made a mistake. At the time, it didn't seem like a mistake, but that first night, all these deer piled out, and they came from two different places. There was one place at the opposite corner of the opening where they're coming out, and then there was another side where they're coming out right next to me, and then coming down the edge of the field in front of me. And one of those deer, if he'd come through sooner, I would have got a shot just by a little bit. So I felt confident if I stayed in this spot. It was a great tree. I didn't want to get too much further on that corner because based on the maps and stuff, I was guessing some of these bucks, this is October 30th or 31st or something, they were probably still bedded off this point. So I thought, okay, tonight I'm going to stick it out here. We had this rainy morning, cool. I bet you they're going to be moving earlier tonight. If some of these bucks in the area do something similar to what they did last night, I'll be able to get a shot. Get in there early, great conditions. The deer start piling out. But this time, that buck did the exact same thing as he did the first night. Well, it's a different buck now. An even bigger buck than I saw the first night. I saw like a 160-something inch buck with a split G2 on one side, a deep split G3 on the other side. Huge deer. Comes popping out, same place I did the night before, but instead of coming down the edge by me, he went out into the middle of the field and then continued past like 80 yards. Couldn't do anything to get him to come in any closer. So, saw a bunch more deer that night, and then this is where I wish I'd made this adjustment the night before, but I didn't. But here I go Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. I can't keep these days straight anymore. But the next night, I said, okay, been seeing these deer pop out. There's so many deer, an astronomical number of deer that are piling into here, that even though this is the third day in this general area, it seemed a little stupid to go and hunt the same thing again. But at the same time, there's so many. I've been seeing different bucks piling off this ridge every night. That I said, okay, you know what? There's a lot of potential here. I need to be there, but I need to adjust. So I headed in there at midday, pulled down that one stand, moved down another 150 yards, 150 yards, until finally I found there was like no trees available that I could get into, but I found one that kind of worked, got up in that tree, and again, saw another shooter, a sixth different shooter, seventh different shooter, and a whole bunch of deer. Unfortunately, this one came out from the opposite side, so now I was in a great position to shoot to the one entrance, but the second entrance I couldn't get to. He came out of that one. I had another buck. I had a doe pop out right in front of me, and a buck coming behind her at last light, just rap, 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 rap. I thought this is one of the big boys that's going to happen, but it was not. As a 2-year-old. And then that again was the end of my night there. Hunted another morning, and what I didn't tell you is hunted another morning, met some more hunters. Hunted that night. When I came out, there was a different hunter at his truck that had been in another spot. And then yesterday morning, hunted another morning and had another four-wheeler come by an hour after daylight. He decided to come into his tree stand. So the hunting pressure thing continues every day. So basically now where I'm at is I actually came home. I don't know if I told you that.
Yep.
I came home to take care of a little bit of stuff at home for a day and a half. And I did that because if I had to do this, which I had to do this is the day to do it, as the weather was, as we talked about, not ideal. Obviously, you can still get it done, but I thought, okay, I'll swing home for a day, turn around, get back. So I'm coming back tomorrow, I believe. And the weather is going to be hitting on Thursday. We're going to get some rain. Friday, the temperature is going to drop, and then all of a sudden we've got this cold front passing through, and I think there's going to be some opportunity there. But where I'm getting at here, I'm kind of rambling here, telling you guys what's happening. I've had some good things happening. I've had some bad things happening. But if you stick it out, if you push through this stuff, if you hunt through it, you can get to, in this case, a good cold front at the end of the weekend. For these guys that start their rut weekend or their rut week and they've been dealing with 75-degree temperatures, well, if they can push through the grind that we talk about a lot Friday, Saturday, Sunday, somewhere around there, all of a sudden you could get those rewards. And I think when it comes down to the rut, kind of a final thought here, whether it be missing or dealing with it, whatever these issues are, if you can weather the grind, or if you can just manage to keep at it, we've talked a lot about the long days. If you're hunting all day, or if you're hunting 7 days in a row or 14 days in a row, it's exhausting. It's, it can be stressful if these things are going wrong. It can be disappointing if mistakes are being made or things don't go the way you want. But if you can just push through that grind and keep at it, you can get that reward at the end. And if nothing else, at least, at the very least, for me, I want to at least know that I gave it my all. If I can get to the end of my rut vacation or the end of my season or whatever, as long as I don't look back on it and say I could have done more, or I wish I'd worked harder, or I wish I'd tried a little more, put in a little more effort, as long as that's not something I'm feeling, I think you can feel pretty good about what you did. And I think that's my final thoughts here for the dark side of the rut is there's going to be some dark points. There's going to be some disappointments, but just keep grinding. And if you do that, it's going to be all right. Now, quickly, before we move on, we need to pause briefly for a word from our partners at Sitka Gear. And today I'm asking Sitka product category leader Dennis Suck about what the process of developing their new line of whitetail gear looked like.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny thing because, as I sit here today, I'm thinking about 2017. So if that gives you an idea of how long it takes a couple of years. And, when you start that process, it's a process of looking for pain points and looking for opportunities where maybe, people didn't know a product people didn't know they needed, or a problem they've just become accustomed dealing with without a viable solution. And that's a series of, interviewing some folks, asking some tough questions, being a hunter yourself, going out and thinking about, that one instance that caused you problems, or how come my hands keep getting cold, or what could I do if somebody didn't tell me how to make a jacket, how would I make that jacket, given the fact that maybe I'm an archery hunter. So going back through that and thinking about the seasons, what happens in the early season, the late season, what happens when I'm hanging my tree stands, all those little things that make us whitetail hunters, thinking about them, diagnosing them. And then we write briefs, which is us saying that if you could do it, this would be the perfect product. And lots of iteration, lots of testing. We try not to test anything on our consumers. So we get out, beat stuff up, rip things. We have problems. Things don't work. We come back to the well, we do it again. But that process, it's a couple year process for us to do it the way that we feel that our consumers deserve.
All right, so there you have it. And if you'd like to learn more about Sitka Gear's new line of whitetail gear, visit sitkagear.com. And now, let's get back to the show.
Amen, Brother Mark.
Amen.
So we got to close down shop because I got to go pick my kids up.
Well, that's good because I got to close down shop to have dinner with my wife and then head back to Iowa. So going to Iowa for a few days for the cold front. Hopefully can get it done. Going to go back to my honey hole, hopefully, because that's the only place I can find that there's not hunters. And hopefully get it done and then go to Ohio. So I'm excited because next week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about the booner that you shot. So let's plan on that.
Okay.
We're going to have a great hunt. And any final thoughts before we shut it down?
Wear your damn safety harness.
Wear your safety harness. Great advice, Dan. Very good. For all of the rest of you, please take Dan's advice to heart. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave a rating or review on iTunes. We really appreciate that. If you want some more podcast goodness while you are driving to hunting camp or driving to your rut spots, check out the Whitetail Q&A podcast, which is my secondary podcast, or check out the Nine Finger Chronicles, which is Dan's new podcast about gear. Awesome stuff over there. Make sure you check out all of that. Finally, we also do need to thank our partners who do make this podcast possible. So big thank you to Sitka Gear, Trophy Ridge, Bear Archery, Redneck Blinds, Huntera Maps, Ozonics, Carbon Express, Lacrosse Boots, and the Whitetail Institute of North America. And finally, I just, like I mentioned a second ago, this is the rut, and we have all these high expectations and high hopes and dreams of how amazing it's going to be, but it's not always going to go that way. Just take that as a reality right now. Maybe you haven't gone on your trip yet. Maybe your trip's next week. No, it's not all going to go just as you planned. Even though we all hope it does and we all think it's going to be amazing, it's not always going to go that way. So just assume there's going to be a road, there's going to be a bump on the road, there's going to be a turn that we're not expecting, and just mentally prepare yourself for that. And know that when that happens, you have the strength and the intestinal fortitude and the oomph to dig down, push through it, keep at it, stay positive, and kill your buck. Or at least try your damnedest doing it.
And have fun.
So, with all that said, appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for following the Wired to Hunt podcast. And until next time, stay wired to hunt.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. You simply pour a can into your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. So pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.